Hey, this is going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about a really cool chord progression that the Beatles used, and it's a great illustration of modal mixture. So thanks for being on. Let's geek out and jump right in. Also, if you're part of the replay crew, let us know where you're coming from and what you think of this song. And the song is a classic by the Beatles. And just to step back and talk about the Beatles and chord progressions, people say the Beatles are some of the greatest songwriters of all time. And why is that? It's because they were masters of harmony. But what does that even mean? Because masters of harmony sounds like this abstract thing. What it means is they came up with really good chord progressions. Of course, they had great melodies, great production, great lyrics, all of that. But the chord progressions were a fundamental layer in their songwriting process. And when they were masters of harmony, that led to the ability to come up with excellent melodies and excellent songs that really have momentum and force. So when the Beatles were masters of harmony, it's more than just, they kind of put chords together and randomly came up with some pleasing sounds. The mastery of harmony meant that they knew which chords go well together. And sometimes it's not very intuitive why particular chords were used. So in this song, we're going to look at a song from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band called When I'm 64, which is kind of a jaunty song. It's based on or influenced by like music hall music, an earlier tradition that was kind of already arguably passé or a little bit kitschy in the 1960s, and which is why Paul McCartney kind of made a song that sounded like that, because he was zigging when everyone else was zagging. In the Summer of Love, a song like When I'm 64 is not necessarily what you'd expect, but it's excellently crafted and it's based on a really cool chord progression. One that not only sounds great, but moves between different modes, which is why the song has some variety and cool interest to it. So let's get into it and see what's going on here. All right, so When I'm 64, this is Paul McCartney back in the day. He's probably about 24, 25 years old here, looking ahead into the distant future of being 64. He said that, actually, this is a good book. If you haven't checked this out, it's Paul McCartney, The Lyrics, and it's a breakdown of the lyrics of, I think, every song that he's released, which is pretty cool. But true to form, Paul McCartney talks about the lyrics of the song, and he talks about this on page 525 of a really thick book. But he doesn't ever really delve into chord progressions and the actual music theory behind what he was doing. So that's what we're going to do here, is we're going to open up the hood, peek inside, and see what was going on in his compositional mind, in his musical mind, beyond just the lyrics. But he did say in this book that 64 seemed like a far way off at the time. And so that's why he has that as the theme of the song. Okay, so like I say, it's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This song is from. This is Paul, and he's definitely not 64 in this. He says that he came up with the melody in its entirety when he was like 16. So that probably means he came up with it when he was about 20, based on his history of a little bit of exaggeration. But even if it was when he was 16, I mean, that is truly amazing. And it wasn't just a melody that just floated through the air. It's grounded in a really cool chord progression. So let's see what that chord progression is. And it's mostly in D flat Ionian, that is. But, and that's another name for a major key, which is why it has kind of a jaunty, upbeat sound. But then it does, in the chorus section, periodically delve into B flat Aeolian, which is a fancy way of saying minor. So it goes back and forth between major and minor modes, which is why the song uses kind of a seemingly eclectic blend of chords, because not all of the chords go together within a single key or mode. He's reaching around in the circle of fifths. We're going to open up the chord map. We're going to play around with what those chords are, but let's just get a feel for the sound of the song, since I've been doing a lot of talking, and let's hear it. So the song is, it starts in D flat Ionian, which again is a major key. And I have the chords listed here. And to start out, that's awesome. Oh no, this is good. I wrote that correctly. Okay, so it's D flat Ionian, which is just a D flat chord here, and I've labeled them already as 1 because in the key of D flat, the D flat major chord is the 1, so it's, and then he plays a G flat major, which is a major 4 chord, and then back to D flat. So you see that a lot in intros to songs, and the Beatles definitely did this, and others do it as well, is they kind of like drone on the tonic chord, establishing the tonal home base for a given song. In this case, D flat is clearly the tonal home base because he's really hitting that home, like, hey, we're in the key of D flat. And in the produced version of the song, there's like an oboe or something. There's just kind of like a little cutesy riff to establish we're in D flat. Okay. Then we get into the verse. This is the same verse progression in both verse 1 and 2. And let me get it so it can fit on the screen if you can see the whole thing there. And so it's, and I can never really remember lyrics, so I'm just going to kind of hum it. I'm going to scat sing. So it's, flat chord. Okay, I went through that a little bit fast, but let's slow it down and pick that apart because there's some really cool stuff going on here, and this is only the beginning. So we're only in the major key, or D flat Ionian. So what he's doing is, again, he's establishing D flat major as the home base, the tonal home base. So it's a D flat to start. And then this is a really simple progression to begin with. So he's just going back and forth between the 1 and the 5. And it's amazing. If you listen to the melody, it's amazing how much melodic movement is going on above 2 basic chords, just a 1 and a 5. So it's a da 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 da. This part's really cool. So he's just playing 5, and it's a really cool kind of cascading melody, but it's just a 5. So he comes back to that 1, and then staying on that 1 is so to a 4. So 1 5 4. This is about as basic as you can get to begin with. Okay, so this progression from the 4, and then we go through a series of chords in quick succession: 1, major 6, 2, 5, and 1. Now, just looking at the chord names, you can get a feel for, oh, those chords seem to be harmonically related in, say, a circle of fifths type relationship. And if that's what you're thinking, it's true. So let's go to the chord map, and we're going to get into the key of D flat Ionian. So I'm going to rotate the 1 so that it aligns with D flat major chord. And the grouping is around the chords that we've played so far, most of them. And we're in Ionian. So we're in D flat Ionian, which is a fancy way of saying the D flat key of D flat major. And so far we've played a 1 and a 5. And then we go to a 4. And then there's some really cool movement in, like I say, this section where we go 4 and then 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Let's look at what that is in the chord map. So we go 4, 1, a 6, 2, 5, 1. So you can see that we're just going in this counterclockwise motion where we land on the tonic. We arrive at the tonic from the dominant, and we arrive at the dominant from the dominant's dominant, or the secondary dominant, to 5, and we arrive at the 2 to the secondary dominant to the dominant of the dominant. So if you personify this and think of it as people, for example, let's say that this is a person, this is the parent, this is the grandparent, and this is the great-grandparent, like in terms of like we're moving through a sequence of chords. And that's why those chords, even though B flat major, the major 6 chord, it's not B minor like in the key of D flat Ionian. It's not B minor. We're playing a major chord because it's a secondary dominant. It's a secondary dominant to an E flat major chord, which again is a secondary dominant to A flat major, which is the dominant to the tonic. So I'm going to show this in this form, and you can see basically it's just the chord map with the cells highlighted of the chords that we play. So it's 4 and then 1, and then we reach all the way out here and make it our way back home to the D flat Ionian. So it's like I said, there's a music hall sound to this. It's almost like, I mean, it feels like it's not from the 1960s. This feels like it's maybe from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, like it's in the decades prior to the 60s, which Paul McCartney did on purpose because Sgt. Pepper's is like an eclectic sounding album, which has a really cool sound to it. And it's drawing from sounds. Of course, the production of the song has kind of older sound instruments on it, but also this progression is hearkening back to an era where that was like a thing, where there was a lot of movement through the circle of fifths. So which is awesome. Now, if that was all that was in the song, that would be cool. But then Paul McCartney takes us on further into the harmonic territories of a minor key. So basically the relative B flat Aeolian. And what does that mean? So let's play the chord progression and then let's pick it apart to see what is going on here. So now we go. We shall scream and sing. Let's see. Okay, so what is going on here is notice how this B flat minor chord is now a minor 1. So we have switched. In essence, what happened is if we look at the chord map, we went from D flat being the 1 chord, major 1, to we kept the same grouping of chords, but now we're going to rotate. So notice that grouping stays the same, but we rotated the 1 to align with B flat minor. And so now we're in B flat Aeolian, which again is a fancy name for saying B flat minor. So it's mostly the same chords, which is why, again, the chords sound compatible. They continue to sound harmonically pleasing because they form a compatible set. But now we're treating B flat minor as the tonic, and it has a decidedly more pensive or kind of wistful sound. So it's, let's see. So what that is we're going from a minor 1 to a flat major 7. This was a 5 in the context of D flat major. So A flat was the 5, but now that B flat minor is a minor 1, the roll or numeral of that chord, of an A flat major chord, is now a flat major 7. It's the same harmony, but its relationship to the tonic has changed. So now it's considered a flat major 7 to back to a minor 1. We shall scream and sing. So then we go to this 5 chord, which is outside of Aeolian. In Aeolian, the minor 5, F minor, is a minor chord. But borrowed from the parallel Ionian, this F major chord sounds really good. It's basically a dominant. Instead of saying an F minor, and you can see the root note is the same, it's F, but instead of being a minor chord in this middle ring, we went to the inner ring of major chords, and this major 5 has more of a tense, satisfying resolution to that minor 1. So that's why we played an F major instead of an F minor, because it wouldn't sound as good. So if we went, we shall swim, and then we go to F minor, like it sounds appropriately kind of melancholy, but it's not that which wants to resolve back to that minor 1. So we're still in a minor key in the chorus. Let me get the screen pulled up. We're still in a minor key in the chorus of B flat minor. So and then E minor, which is the minor 4 in B flat Aeolian. And then we go to a flat major 6, which is a G flat, to a flat major 7, which is an A flat, and then we resolve back to 1. So that's how Paul McCartney gets from the minor key back to the major keys. He basically plays these two chords, which in a minor key fit. It's G flat major is a flat major 6, and A flat major is a flat major 7. And then he goes to, and really I could label this as a 1. It transitions back into a major key. So in the chord map, he's playing in the chorus a minor 1 to a flat major 7, minor 1 to a 5. He goes to minor 1 to a minor 4, and then he plays a flat major 6 to a flat major 7, and then he comes to this chord back to D flat major, which basically we're keeping the same grouping of chords, but now we're treating D flat major as the tonic, and so we rotate back into Ionian. And if the song just ended there on D flat Ionian, it would sound complete. It would sound resolute, as if we had resolved to a satisfyingly final chord. But the song's not over. So it does again treat, in the verse 2, it treats the D flat chord as the tonic, and we sound as though, yeah, we're back in the harmonic territory of D flat Ionian. So it's like the progression that we played before, super satisfying, and then he goes and then just rotates back into the minor mode. Now, this is all on the fly as you're playing, and in Paul McCartney's head, he's shifting between these modes. But the beautiful thing about being able to plot them within musical space like this, there is a logic, there is a structure, a cyclical, symmetrical, geometric structure to all these chords, which the chord map shows. And so when we go back into the chorus, we're back between, chords minor 1, flat major 7. We include a minor 4, flat major 6, flat major 7, and then we rotate again to the 1. And let's look at a really cool progression at the end. So we've played through the verse and the chorus, and we're shifting between a major tonic and a minor tonic, and they sound compatible as song sections because really these two chords, the D flat and the B flat minor, they're relative major and minor chords. They're neighbors in the circle of fifths or in the chord map because they stem from an underlying scale pattern, and they're closely related, and you can see it here. Now let's look at the let's look at this. This was the chord map summary for the chorus, which again is in B flat Aeolian, and we're including these three major chords, this minor chord, and then this major chord over here. And I'm going to have all of these diagrams on the post, the heads up post for this live stream in the library. So on locals, if you go to mycolormusic.com, you'll find the diagrams that go with this post, along with the chord progression and all that, so you can pick it apart and play it at your own pace. Then we played verse. Okay, this is kind of the end of the song, and this is pretty cool what goes on here. So it's very similar to verses 1 and 2. We're in D flat Ionian, so it's and then this is awesome. Now, this is very similar to what we have played before, but we get this really cool flat major 6 in the key of D flat, which adds some extra like music hall oomph, which really gives it that retro throwback sound. So notice this chord. It sounds awesome. So I'm just going to start on this 4 chord, the G flat major. So it's so I'm going to play that again a little slower. So it's so man, a 4 to a flat major 6 sounds awesome. And then we go back into that 1 flat or 6 major 6, and then 2 5 1. So in the circle of fifths on the chord map, what we're doing is we're going 1 to a flat major 6. So we're going over here. Now, the flat major 6 is a tritone of the major 2. And it also has this geometric relationship. It's a part of a perfect triangle of major thirds with the 1. So if we were to go between the 1 and the flat major 6, it would sound kind of epic. There's this 1. Those 2 chords sound awesome together. And it has to do with that geometric, it's intervals of major thirds. And playing 2 major chords that are separated by a major third has that epic sound, but we arrive at that epic chord, the flat major 6, from the 4. So it's, and then 1 2 6 2 5 1. So it's 4 to flat major 6, 1 to 6, 2 5 1. So it's again that we're rounding the bases, to use a metaphor analogy, rounding the bases home, where we're running through all of these chords in sequence. And it's like this kind of harmonic movement through that many secondary dominants, in essence, is something that you don't hear in a lot of music today. In a lot of songs today, you're going to get the 1 6 5 4, 1 5 6 4, 1 5 6 4. Like you're going to get 1. But it's like harmonically timid, or playing it super safe by staying within this very limited zone of compatible chords. To be able to reach out into chords that are outside of a key is really ambitious and also bold. That's awesome. And then also to shift between modes is also awesome. Like you're not going to get this in top 40 songs, at least today. We're kind of in there's a lot of good music out there, but we're in a little bit of a creative dry spell, you may have noticed, with a lot of modern songs. And they're just not, moving in different ways between chords in creative ways. But once you know how to do it, and once you dissect the songs of masters like this, the Beatles were masters of harmony. And once you see what that means with actual song examples and actual chord progressions that move through harmonic space in a totally intentional, very beautiful way, you can learn from the greats rather than just sticking with, a 1 4 5 or throwing in a 6 to 1 5 6 4 sound a little bit, branched out harmonically. A song like this is like a beautiful way to pick up new tricks. And every single time I do a song insight, I'm always like, whoa, those guys were way better than I realized. Just for kicks, I want to play this on the keyboard for anyone who wants to maybe play this video back and see the chord progression on piano. So it's a 1, 5, 1. And then the ending is, let's see, it's so it's I won't go into the piano in as much detail because a lot of us are here playing guitar, but if you wanted to play along and pick out that progression on the piano, it's totally doable because the same theory, the same harmonic relationships apply between instruments. So you can branch out between instruments as well, which is fun stuff. So anyway, that's the song in a nutshell. Maybe you can just jump into a couple of the comments or any and all chat you want to do to geek out about Modal Mixture, the Beatles, and all of that. Let's see. So Peter, hey, it's cool to have you on. So a majority of us fans who grew up with them are over 64 indeed, and many under that, of course. Yeah, it's funny, you know, Paul McCartney said actually in this book, in the lyrics, he says, you know, like 64 is now, he says it seemed very old then. Now it looks quite sprightly, you know, because he's almost, I think, 82 or something like that. So yeah, 64 is laughably not old, but it's a great song. And especially with the old time sound, of course, that would have probably appealed to some people who were around 64, maybe in the 1960s. So it's good stuff. Omar, there is no way McCartney and Lennon did not have a production team and writers behind them. Yeah, you know, I've done a post on Paul Simon, who has been more candid in he's been a little more open about his knowledge, Paul Simon's knowledge of music theory and the songwriting process. And he was asked once if he thought Paul McCartney knew theory, or if it was true that, as Paul McCartney claims, he didn't know anything. And he was like, no, it's not possible that Paul McCartney is as ignorant as he claims. I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically the gist. He was basically like, McCartney's full of shit. Unless he's the luckiest, most like intuitive guy. And he's like, he is very musical, but there's no way. Paul Simon doesn't believe that Paul McCartney isn't more knowledgeable. And this is exhibit A. Like, so every single song is proof that they knew a lot more than they let on. Hey, Marcus USA. They still had to deliver, and they were all pretty successful after doing their solo work. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, George Martin gets a lot of credit for bringing more of a classical sense or more of a theoretical knowledge to the Beatles, which is totally true. But I mean, if it's true, even if he's half off, Paul McCartney composed that melody when he was 16. So he definitely had an intuitive sense, but he didn't really flesh it out, to my knowledge, until like 8 or 9 years later when Sgt. Pepper's came out. So I think that he had definitely learned a lot about chords and how to come up with a progression that would support a melody like that. And it was way more than just a basic 1-4-5, like the kind of stuff that the Beatles were writing in 1961, 62, 63. And then 1967, he's definitely getting into more harmonic movement, like we've seen here with the ChordMap. And it had to have been based on more knowledge. But yeah, totally right. Their solo work is amazing as well. There's a really good song that I want to look at coming up by Paul McCartney that is crazy on the chord progression. It's like all over the map. And we can look at that sometime. But yeah, they have some really good stuff. Omar, do you believe in magic? I believe in, I don't believe in the supernatural. I think that nature is beautiful and enough. So for me, the supernatural is like gilding the lily when the lily is beautiful itself. But I think there is what you might call magic based on serendipity, or, combining elements, or kind of finding connections between seemingly unrelated things, and coming up with an almost alchemical sum that's greater than or total that's greater than the sum of the parts. But yeah, I think there's definitely a magical sense to music, but it can all be explained by logic. Now, that's not to say that the left brain or that theory should be a wet blanket on creativity. It's actually the fuel to the fire. And once you can articulate ideas with theory, it actually takes you to new places, like places that I wished I could have reached before I knew theory. That's a long answer to a short question. Hopefully that makes sense. Ever heard of the Wrecking Crew? No, Omar. Or if I have, I don't know them by that name. I'm interested to know who that is, what they're about, and what they wreck. Who is this crew and what do they wreck? Is my question. Virtuous Heretic, did you see McCartney perform when he was 64? I think I did. So if he was born in 1942, so what would that be? He was 64 in, if I can do some quick math, 2006. So yeah, maybe. Yeah, he was rocking. He was also wearing like high heels on stage, just like the Beatles would do back in the day with their like, they're not stiletto heels, but they were pretty tall. And he was walking around on that stage. He was looking really good, sounding really good. He was probably about 64. Hey, Dave, it's cool to have you on. So yes, in Seattle, not sure about being 64 though. Yeah, 64. It's funny. And he says in this, the lyrics, that he chose 64 instead of 65, the traditional retirement age, because it was just unexpected. It's like 64. It's like, why 64? So there was a little bit of tongue in cheek there. Actually, he goes into some of the lyrics and the double meaning on some of the lyrics, as the Beatles would do, and just having fun with it. But yeah, I think a song about someone being 64 and will you still need me? Will you still feed me? Makes someone 64 sound decrepit and well beyond 64. Do you believe in magic is a good song? Hey, that is right. Do you believe in magic is a great song. Peter, not one of my most memorized Beatles songs, but wasn't there a cool kazoo part in that song? Oh yeah, there might be a kazoo in that song. I know they were getting into the kazoo a bit in 1967, 1968, around the Yellow Submarine era. I can't remember. I'm going to have to listen to that song again. Does anyone know if there's a kazoo in this song? That adds to the whimsical sound of this song for sure, if there's a kazoo. Hey, Rustley, this is great how you show us on the color wheel. I keep mine out. Awesome. And my guitar too. Very cool. So once you see how useful and wonderful a tool this is, you have to get one. Another great lesson. Thanks very much. And I'm glad that it's helping. For me, the being able to get my hands on theory. I mean, I couldn't even wrap my head around theory back in the day. So, because it's such an abstraction. So to be able to literally hold it in my hands and like play with it still blows my mind. And I'm glad that it helps. And that's very cool. It's all about putting this theory into practice, transferring the head knowledge into the hands knowledge. So I love it. And thanks for your feedback. Thanks for being on. Yeah, the Omar, I read big labels put out. Oh, you read that big labels put out the myth of the solo singer-songwriters to sell more records. Interesting. I'm not familiar with, I mean, I know that solo singer-songwriters can sell more records, and that in and of itself sounds like poetry. I could say that 10 times and it sounds really good. Yeah, actually, just speaking of Paul McCartney and solo, the theory that Paul is dead The whole Paul is dead hoax. If you were to subscribe to that theory, which no one actually does in real life, like that dude, whoever filled in as the replacement after Paul McCartney supposedly died in a car wreck in 1966, is truly the most talented fill-in ever to go on and like hold the world record for greatest, list of number ones as a solo songwriter. He's really good. I like Paul McCartney's stuff a lot. Marshall, the Wrecking Crew movie. It's awesome. Okay, so Tommy Tedesco. I can't say that 5 times fast. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Hey, Rodney, it's cool to have you on. So the Wrecking Crew is the Beach Boys studio crew. So that's interesting. The Beach Boys, I've been listening to a little bit of interviews with them. I love the Beach Boys. And I guess I'm interested to know if there was a Beach Boys song to do a song insight on, what would that be? Is there a favorite that you'd want to do? You never heard of the Wrecking Crew? Marcus, I'm sorry. There are some super blasphemous things that come out of my mouth every once in a while. One of them recently was that I don't totally get Bob Dylan, but I got a recommended, because your computer listens to you, and so I had a recommended interview, like a 45-minute interview with Bob Dylan, show up in my YouTube feed. So even YouTube is like, come on, man, you got to know. So yeah, I think I know now what the Wrecking Crew is, and I'm gonna have to learn more. It's good stuff. Peter, Lemon Spoonful, do you believe magic as when Al Michaels announced when USA beat Russia in Lake Placid? Yeah, that there was some magic going on there. Loving Spoonful, I know only from a high level, but I don't know them a whole lot. Or maybe I don't know that I know them as well as I do. Ross, the Wrecking Crew and Sound City, 2 excellent must-see movies. So is the Wrecking Crew movie about the Beach Boys production crew? Am I continuing with the blasphemy, or am I on the right track here? The Beach Boys have an interesting behind-the-scenes story as well. Sorry, he might have said miracles instead. Yeah, you're talking the hockey. When you say the USA beat Russia, it's like the hockey miracle, right? It's like one of the greatest upsets of all time. I do know that. I know about Olympic hockey apparently more than I know about the Beach Boys and some stuff. I've got my priorities. I gotta check some stuff out. Yeah, the Beach Boys have an interesting vibe. The whole connection with the Manson family is interesting. We could talk more about that. So as far as songwriting goes, let me know if there would be a good Beach Boys song to cover. I'm going to be talking about some more Beatles songs and other song insights. I'm excited to delve more into some of this harmonic movement, because one, it's really cool to pick apart songs and get a better feel for how the song was written. It makes me appreciate certain songs a lot more than I would have. Like When I'm 64 isn't like an all-time favorite of mine, but knowing what went into it and how the song was composed, getting a peek behind the curtain into Paul McCartney's opaque songwriting mind is exciting. It's exciting to humanize and demystify him as a songwriter and others. So there will be more song insights that we'll do. Oh, Rodney. Okay, cool. God only knows. And I actually have looked into this chord progression, which is beautiful and considered one of the greatest songs of all time. And I agree. And especially once you get into the chord progression, you can see why. There's some really cool stuff going on with that song. So I'll be sure to cover that. Thank you for mentioning that one, because it is so good. So that is this song example in a nutshell. And I think we can leave it there for tonight. I hope you have a great rest of your day, morning, evening, night, whatever time it might be for you. And I hope you have a great week, and we will be talking real soon. We'll see you.